Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a very, very special episode of the Crusty Canuck podcast. I'm your host, Crusty Canuck. On tonight's episode, we are live. Pardon my tardiness there. Had some technical issues, but we'll get it sorted out as soon as we can. Nonetheless, I have two special guests, a husband-wife team from a YouTube channel called Northern Perspective. That's right. We probably just dissect some politics, criticize the government, and see what we can do in these trying political times. All that and more come at the show. Please stick around. Listener and viewer discretion is advised because we swear and I smoke cigarettes. Catch you in a bit.
Hit it, sweetheart. Because I am hard, you will not like me. Yes, sir. There is no racial bigotry here. Here you are all equally worthy.
From Western Canada, this is the Crusty Canuck podcast, a Canadian veteran's point of view on political, social, economic issues, and life. Here's Crusty.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a very, very special episode of the Crusty Canuck podcast, live for the 7th of May, 2023. With me in studio today is Northern Perspective, the lovely Cypher, and Fox. Welcome, folks, to the show.
Thank you. Good evening.
Thanks for having us.
Not a problem. Looks like your microphone is muted there. Fox, unless you're sharing a microphone.
Are you able to hear me?
So the way
I
this is
can hear you,
working,
yes.
Krusty, is Fox's microphone actually comes through my computer. So
okay.
It's sending as one channel. So we're actually all good.
Okay, good. Yeah, we had some issues there with my microphone set up here too. Apparently my microphone is working here. I can't hear them through this, but I can hear them through the computer speakers. So the audience out there, if you cannot hear certain clicks or dialogues or bells or sounds that I usually use in my podcast, just let me know. It's just been a real treat to be able to talk with these guys. We had a little chit chat last night on things, but now the floor is yours, lady and gentlemen. So what got you started with Northern Perspective?
So we've been watching how Canadian society has been evolving over the last couple of years. And I think things really changed when we had our son a few years ago. And we saw the explosion of really the restriction of free speech, the enforcement of new ideologies that are frankly destructive. And ironically, the side that is preaching trust the science is actually going against biological science in a lot of cases. And that's worked its way all the way up to the height of our country and government with the institution of Bill C-16 a few years ago. So we started following Jordan Peterson and his journey, his accidental rise to intellectual fame across the world. And, you know, we really saw him speaking common sense, and so many people were just trying to shout him down. But thankfully, he was not able to be canceled. And as we started seeing different types of channels on YouTube talking about the same message, because they weren't allowed to talk about this message in the mainstream media, we started, seeing a couple of other teams out there and said, you know what, we could probably do something, and we probably should do something. So with my career, we're a traditional family. Fox is a stay-at-home mom, and I'm the breadwinner. I'm in I'll just call it a senior position where I am. I would be removed from my position without any hesitation should my employer see that we're talking about the content that we are. And at this point, we're just trying to get the message out, trying to let people who vote liberal understand what is happening in this country, because I think most of them don't. And let them see that, the conservatives are not the boogeymen that they're being made out to be in the media. Mm-hmm. Fox?
So our channel initially started out as kind of a mishmash of everything. I think most YouTube channels probably start out that way until they kind of get settled a bit more and find their audience. So we were talking about all sorts of kind of center right topics, such as the nuclear family, feminism, some red pill stuff. And we released a few videos on politics. Cypher and I lean to the right, and we were talking about, I think it was the video that we described what is a leader and who should be the next leader of the country based on those qualifications. And it just exploded. And we had touched on politics a little bit, but we kind of decided that, you know what, let's run with this. And then the whole China interference thing happened. So we've only been doing this channel since late January. And
yeah, we started with 0 subscribers. Yeah. And after we released, I think, our first couple of targeted political videos, one video grew over 700 subscribers in just a couple of days. And then, we've been growing at a pretty good clip ever since. We're almost up to 3,700 now. So people, there's people out there that, want to hear this message, and they're not hearing it from the mainstream media.
Well, I think it's important for Canadians to understand how our political system works and what's going on in that House of Commons. It's kind of like a house of mystery to most of us, I think. And even to me, before we started doing this, I had no idea what went on. And just what I've learned in such a short time it's crazy.
Well, and that's the interesting part. What we've found is most of the comments that we get in the videos that actually are doing the best on our channel are videos that we actually take time to dive into details of what happens in Parliament, really diving into explaining, what is, a persona non grata, what is, some of the legislation that has come out, what is, what does it mean when Pierre says that, 80% of, or the average Canadian is going to be paying a net loss of something like $1,500 on the carbon tax. Like, what does that mean? So, the good thing is with my career background, I'm able to get into these reports and really dissect them and explain them to people, because nobody's done that, and that's where I think they don't know what's going on. So we're providing an education for the people out there, and the most destructive force and threat towards the government is an informed voter, and I think that is I think that's what they fear. I think that's where Bill C-11 came from, and that's what we're trying to achieve.
Mm-hmm. Fox, I assume you would concur?
No. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, it's like I've said to you before, I'm kind of libertarian based. I was a staunch conservative prior to, I guess, say 2015 per se. Things changed. Just more rules and regulations. And that was at a point in my career in the military where I was starting to see a different light in things. I was diagnosed with PTSD. My thought process kind of changed. I was really in a bad place per se, and I was not really focused on important things. But I started thinking more about freedoms and what we did as soldiers, what our grandparents did during the Second World War, what other service members did after the war, pre-war years, post-war years, the peacekeeping years, and all that. And things just kind of came into perspective in regards to how Harper was being treated by the media and how everybody was kind of grooming Justin for being the new great leader. And it just exploded, basically. And I'm thinking, well, what freedoms do we have in this country? If you have a gun, you have to go through all these hoops. If you have a car, you have to go through these hoops. If you want a job here, you have to go through these hoops. Hoop after hoop, red tape after red tape. And I just had enough. Right? I'm happy that there's opposition in Parliament right now that is actually standing up for some common sense. Now, there are some things I do disagree with when it comes to Pierre Poilievre, but you can see him getting angry now when he's looking across the floor and he's pointing, right? And then how everyone's so round up in regards to proper dialogue. I miss the days where you can actually have a heated debate and people are going to get mad. Of course, that's just human nature. But the way they're treating it right now, it's like, well, we want this, want that, but don't you dare get mad at us, and don't you dare tell us how to feel. We'll tell you how to feel. And when I watch every member opposite in the Liberal caucus talk about policies, it's almost like they're talking out of their ass. They don't really care what they're doing. They're just speculating. They're conjecting. They're projecting everything. And it's almost like they were paid to do that rather than actually represent the constituents. So that's what kind of drives me up the wall when it comes to, you're making a base salary of $180,000 a year, and you're not representing anybody but yourselves. That's the way I look at all the parliamentarians now. Doesn't matter if they're conservative, doesn't matter if they're Bloc, doesn't matter if they're NDP, Jagmeet and his Rolex, or everyone's favorite liberal. So that's just, and there's nothing liberal about them anymore. When you think about it, they're not the John Turner liberals in the 1980s, right?
No, they are.
They're trying to take away our freedoms.
Yeah,
like, how is that liberal?
That's the irony. They've gone so far to the left that they're coming back around to eliminating freedoms. And even looking at the proposed liberal policies that were distributed at the National Liberal Convention, it's concerning. Some of the tactics that they're trying to implement, like lowering the voting age to 17, because liberals are more favorable about young voters, and the only reason they're not lowering it to 16 per their document is because the last time that was proposed, it didn't go well with the public. So they would like a 16-year-old voter if they could get it.
I don't know about you guys, but I was a moron at 16 and 17.
Oh, so was I. I was a
well, you look at Parliament, some people are morons now.
Yeah, that's true.
But the other thing is they want to bring in all of these new immigrants. That we're on track for like another 1 million this year, and of course they're all going to be pro-liberal. So I think they realize that at least enough Canadians that were born and raised here are waking up to the fact that Justin is not the Messiah that everyone was predicting he was going to be, and so they're going to import their voters now and continue to do that. So and then with Bill C-11 restricting what people will be able to see on the internet, they're also talking about implementing government-controlled telecommunications infrastructure that will be, quote-unquote, cheaper than everything else. So it'll encourage most Canadians to go over there because they've made everything else so expensive. And then they will be able to monitor every single thing that you do, VPN or no. They will control the infrastructure, and it is like they are following the playbook of communist China. So it's no wonder that all of this is blowing up.
No doubt, because when you look at certain bank statements of certain financial institutions, they worry about your ESG score, which is similar to social credit, right? Are you a friend of the environment? Do you give to charity? Do you not speak lightly about people? Oh, well, that's a penalty for you. Oh, well, look at it. That's my bad Paul Lynde impression. You guys know who Paul Lynde was. Remember him from Hollywood Squares?
I might be a bit too young for that, Cypher.
Well, I'm not that old either, so I'm not feeble just yet. No, he was quite the comedian back in this, comedic actor back in the 60s and 70s. Flamboyantly gay. No, there's anything wrong with that. That was the time he kept it quiet, but he's known for his zingers from the old Hollywood Squares. So if you guys get some time to yourselves, check out Paul Lynde and his zingers.
I used to watch Hollywood Squares. Good show.
He was quite the character. So I just do a little impression of him once in a while, just so I don't get angry at the buffoonery that's before us when we watch Parliament.
Well, you said something earlier.
Sorry?
You said something earlier that that Pierre's getting angry, and the thing that I find rich is that Trudeau seems to be confused as to why is Pierre getting angry, and that seems to be the talking point that he's putting out to the liberal media that I've seen crop up now. Mm-hmm. And my response to that is, why the hell aren't you getting angry, Justin? Mm-hmm. There's 1.5 million people that are using food stamps. Mm-hmm. There's like there's people that are in our comments that are skipping meals in order to stay to be able to afford anything. Like we do okay, but we know there's a lot of people that are, you know, struggling a lot more than we are, and just everything continues to go up in price. People are going to start losing their houses. You're going to start you know seeing the dissolution of the middle class. They want to bring in universal basic income, so it's going to encourage people not to do any sort of work whatsoever. And we saw that failed experiment in COVID.
And you're reliant on the government for money, for food, for shelter, for everything.
You know, crime has gone up by 30%.
Yeah. That's what it is. It'll be harder for people to fill up their tanks. It'll be harder for people to get that extra flour or that extra rice, depending on their family's diets, right? And assuming assuming that the average Canadian has 2.8 or 3 kids, school lunches have to be cut back. Things have to be cut back. Family dinners have to be cut back. Family fuel intake have to cut back. Have to actually turn the AC off because summer is coming, and then come the winter, keep the heat low. And I remember seeing part of this kind of fiasco in the late 80s when Mulroney was in charge. Remember that guy?
Oh, I remember.
Mr. Chin himself.
Father of the GST.
And with the recession that happened at that time, of course, the government ups another tax. So here's the 7% GST, and we're also going to double the cost of these things and liquor too. So when people do try to cope, now I'm not saying, ladies and gentlemen, go out there and cope with liquor, but it's a vice that's been used for a very, very long time. Guy gets home from a hard day. Someone gets home from a hard day. First thing you do, they'll crack a beer, have a drink. That's it. I'm not saying they'll sit and drink a whole bottle or a case of beer to themselves, but it was actually a place where you can actually unwind and not worry about anything. But then with 7% on every dollar going to the government for everything you buy, and then the double the cost of liquor and tobacco, your vices are just kaput. So that was a kick in the pants to the Canadian taxpayer, consumer, worker alike. Back in, I think it was 1989-90, they implemented it. Right? All because Ottawa couldn't get their shit together again. Right? Spend, and not bring anything in. Stall this, stall that, regulate this, regulate that. Keep spending. And the people that need it the most are the ones that have to pay back the debt. So that's
and people wonder why housing costs as much as it does right now, and everything else costs as much as it does right now. And all of these taxes are always supposed to be temporary, right? Income tax only supposed to be in place, until the end of the war. Well, the war was 80 years ago, guys.
We're still in the trenches.
Yeah. So, and that's the problem. Any one of these new temporary taxes that comes into place, the next government says, "Oh, free money. Thank you very much. We'll just take that and run with it."
Yeah.
So, meanwhile, you're bleeding your population dry. Like people have been saying for years that they don't want to move to Canada because of all the taxes. And it would be something if we got something for it.
Well, it used to be that, go to Canada, you get free healthcare. And even that's in shambles now. Like, nobody wants to move here except from countries that unfortunately are worse off.
And that's scary, because I don't want to disenfranchise anybody who wants to live in a prosperous country. Not at all. I was raised with multiculturalism when you think about it.
For sure.
Different teachers, different students, and it wasn't racialized. It wasn't sexualized. People got along, and if there was ever a student that I heard of that would say anything remotely racist to anybody, that student was punished, either suspended or, I come from the days where they still had the strap. So, if you're a bad boy, you go see the principal. And the principal didn't care about pulling out the strapping. Okay, go back to your class. Shut your mouth. Do as you're told. Oh, okay. That was it. That happened. But now you can't even raise your voice to a kid without someone getting offended, which is just ridiculous.
Unless you define a woman as a biological adult female, then you get arrested. Then you get arrested.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, we did a video on a teenage student in, I think it was Renfrew, Ontario, who was suspended for making that statement. Or no, the statement that there are only two genders. Yeah, and then they arrested him for trying to go back to school.
Yeah, for trespassing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's what our country's come to.
It is, and it's a damn shame, but it's up to us and like-minded individuals, especially people out there, to find the light, whatever light may be, as long as it's based in reality and where people can thrive. And I'm not saying economically, I'm not saying, I'm saying spiritually, as an atheist, I'm going to say spiritual. Okay. About being good to people, but not tolerating the bullshit in the process. If we can agree to that panel, if that's fine,
Well, and even just, and that's the thing about people that I will just say are to the right of the left, because it doesn't matter how far you are to the right of the left. They view everybody as far right if you're not with them. And at least people that are, on the center or to the right, or I'll say not radical left, you can have a conversation with somebody, they can have differing views, and you can still respect them afterwards. And that's the real concerning thing about what has just invaded the universities, what they're pushing into the public schools now, and what they're trying to implement via policy in the government is the identity politics, and you will agree with us. If not, you are evil. And we're heading down that path just as the Nazis did right before they took... Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You will like the bugs, you will eat them, and you will enjoy them, yeah? Exactly. She'll wear my other uniform for this festival event. Yes, of course, yes. You like the
you
bugs,
look like a boss.
Yes, you look very suspicious sitting there. Are you wondering, do they call the heterosexual? We don't like those types around here. No. Yes, no, never.
We have special campgrounds for them.
We got spaces for them. Yes, we do. Yes. Breeding? There's no such thing as breeding. Yes, everything's incubated. Yes. So again, sorry.
I just saw one of your. I just saw one of the people in the comments. I was thinking about this earlier. Trudeau was in front of a camera answering questions in London today, and he seems like he's having a grand old time out there. Meanwhile, half of Alberta's on fire, and I'm thinking maybe not the time to be enjoying a vacation over in London, Justin.
On the taxpayer's dime.
Taxpayer's dime. The right thing for him to do would be, sure, he was there for the coronation. Okay, sorry everybody, we have a huge emergency back home. I'm gonna make sure that I'm there, and that's where my focus is going to be. Like that. But he's so tone deaf; he doesn't understand any of this.
Because he's not a leader at all.
Well, he inherited it.
Well, that's it.
He inherited it, and as far as he's concerned, he doesn't have to. He did the same thing when they had the last wildfire here. He came later, after the smoke was cleared, and a lot of the mess was cleaned up, right? When they had the Fort Mac fire, and that was the same thing. And I'm also hearing speculations between Daniel Smith and Notley on who is the better leader when Notley was around. And Notley stalled quite a bit when it came to getting resources to the places that needed it. So, a lot of people's perspectives, especially out here in Alberta, are getting twisted too. This area has predominantly been conservative since Christ was a cowboy. So it's not like it's anything menacing for the conservatives here. There were some conspiracies and some slack leadership under Jason Kenney. I can vouch for that. Probably because he just wanted to go along, get along, when he should have stood by his ground and said, no, we are not going to implement these mandates because, right? And certain bureaucrats end up getting paid quite a bit of money, and now they're fired because of Daniel Smith. So I'm seeing some leadership out of her, which is good. Do I trust her entirely? Well, I trust her more than I trust Motley Notley. So, well, honestly, like Notley reminds me of Bob Ray from the 1980s. Just
Oh, I remember Bob Ray.
Oh, his only claim to fame in the 80s when he was the premier was he told the insurance companies to stop gouging people. Now, do you remember the big insurance hike that happened around 89, 90 with insurance companies?
Yeah.
Yeah. People were paying all of a sudden double, in some cases triple, because of the red sports car theory, just gouging people. And he actually put a stop to it, which was okay, good for him. But then again, the province almost went broke. So,
And then he decided to change parties.
Well, it was
maybe they'll forget.
Liberal. And now him and his white hair are over in Europe gallivanting around the taxpayers' dime again. So there's a guy who's been in politics for more than 40 years. I think it's time to go, Bob. That's just me,
Yeah, I think most people would concur with that. So
we got you guys in okay. Not questions, just statements. So from Derek Sittler, no relation to the great Maple Leaf Daryl Sittler. There's a whole discontent from the Canadian reality that incites the anger. Add to that total disdain for any dissent. I would kind of concur, because Canadians have never been ones to always be angry, but I can see from my personal experience and from people I've talked to prior to my podcast and in between episodes, there's a lot of anger boiling. What do you guys think?
Most of the people that I talk to have no idea what's going on right now. Like even my parents, who, they're around retirement age. I have a few siblings. Like even my hairdresser, I'll be like, oh my God, did you hear what happened in Parliament with the Chinese interference? And their answer is always, oh, well, I don't watch the news. I don't have time, or I'm not interested, or everybody's so apathetic right now.
Well, one of the points that we made on one of our videos was, I think that the pandemic scared the hell out of the government, because there was no distractions. All the sports leagues were shut down. There was no concerts. There was no football. There was no baseball, no hockey. So there was nothing to distract average, Jane and Joe. So what were they paying attention to? Well, the only thing that was on TV, government. Mm-hmm. And I think that they were relieved as all can be when all these sports leagues, that they were able to implement them again, because it goes all the way back to ancient Rome, when they learned that in order to keep the populace happy, you need to distract them something that has nothing to do with actually ruling the empire. And that was the gladiatorial games. So
circuses, right?
Yeah. So, famous Emperor Commodus, he pissed off almost every single Roman because of his policies, but he was able to do that because he held something ridiculous like 4 or 5 straight months of gladiatorial games. So it gave people something to do. Mm-hmm. So you would rather not worry about the problems of the state and focus on cheering for your favorite gladiator, in our case, cheering for your favorite sports team. So I think that, through the pandemic, I think the average person was just so sick of the misery, so sick of having to essentially do nothing and just feel like a prisoner all day, that they were very glad to just get back to their distractions and not pay attention to the government and what's going on. I think that's actually a huge reason why people just don't know. And I agree. I have colleagues, and I've asked them, hey, so have you heard about what CSIS has been leaking? What are you talking about? Mm-hmm. Wow. But again, it's because the left-wing media, they will pick up the story for maybe a day and then it gets buried. Even Globe and Mail, like they're putting out all of these stories from CSIS, but they only have them on their page for maybe a day, and then they just get kicked to the bottom. And it's a shame that we don't have more non-biased media out there that is willing to have the courage to actually publish these stories. But I think, and this is why I think Trudeau is scared to death of a public inquiry, because if there is a public inquiry on this, every news station will be streaming it, just like they did in the trucker convoy and the Emergencies Act. And there's going to be such a spotlight put on that, and we've already caught him in a bunch of lies, significant ones, and I think he's scared to death what would happen if the country actually paid attention.
I would concur. There's like I said, there's more out west who are actually paying attention to what's happening east, and I think what the east is really acknowledging.
Agreed.
I think there's a sentiment in Ontario, especially around the capital region and parts of Quebec, not the block areas, but I guess you can say the free-minded Quebec that are not obsessed with the language and culture. They're not obsessed with Quebec identity. They're obsessed with democracy. You know, because I would think the majority of Quebecers know that their language is not at stake, right? As far as I can remember, French has been part of Canada since Canada's inception. So, you know, even as called the Canadas or the colonies, even the first settlers. So I personally don't think there's a threat to the French language being decimated by any means. But I think there's a lot of Quebecers that are fed up with the woke mandates, especially Justin Trudeau's Liberal brand. They'd probably sooner welcome Pierre Elliott Trudeau's Liberal brand than do Justin's anymore. Wow. You know, but some of the Quebecers that I've worked with and served with, they can't stand the whole liberal mantra. You know, they would say there's nothing liberal about him. He's worse than his father. You know, like just wow. And really, you know, what can you say? Well, what annoys me too is that some East Coasters, they would stand by Justin in a heartbeat because of what they can get. Okay. But the liberal brand has done nothing but decimate a lot of industry on the East Coast. Right. They've, you know, when it comes to contracts, when it comes to shipbuilding, they'd sooner give it to Irving or give it to the company in St. John, New Brunswick. Right. Which has the facilities to build some great ships. But that's just my speculation. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think so. You know, Justin, I always go back to what Harper said right before the election, where even Harper, he just became so flustered, and he just summed up by saying he has no idea what he is talking about. Mm-hmm. And you look at their quote unquote approach to industry and the economy, and it doesn't follow any rhyme or reason. Like in one respect, he's talking about climate change and saving the environment, and then in the other respect, okay, so you want to cancel all of the gas pipelines, but then you want to build a pipeline, but then you don't want to get it done. Mm-hmm. So, you know, he's talking out both sides of his ass, and he's not achieving anything by it. And then you look at this carbon tax, you know, crap, and like let's just all, for the sake of argument, say that climate change, the way he's described it, is real. Let's just all concede that. All right. So Canada's carbon footprint accounts for 2% of the world's carbon emissions.
Yeah, you're going to round it up and say 2%, which is minuscule.
Yeah. You know, so if we were to become a net zero carbon emission country, that would have absolutely zero effect on the world climate footprint. So,
yeah, it's like a statistical error.
So again, Pareto principle here. So for me, you need to be investing in industry here, and like that means don't close the only refinery that we have in the country. We have all of this petroleum that we're exporting out of the oil sands, which nobody said that we could ever do. Mm-hmm. And then we sell it down to the States, and then they sell it back to us at twice the price because they're the ones refining it for us, and we're still using it. Mm-hmm. So, and he doesn't seem to be interested in our nuclear plants, which are the safest in the world. They produce the most energy per capita in the world. And
they can use the nuclear waste that other plants leave behind. Like the CANDU reactors are the best in the world, and they're the safest.
And in
Well,
terms
that
of
way
the
it's the past 35 years, I believe, because there was talk of that when Chernobyl went up in '86.
yeah,
Yep.
And they said replace with the can-do formula.
well, in the Fukushima reactors, they compared it as well again. Like they said that they did some analysis, and if they were using CANDU reactors, they wouldn't have had that radiation leak. So, like, there's some really, really smart nuclear engineers in Canada that have built all of this stuff. But there's been all this fear-mongering going on, specifically on the left, from Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island, which 3 Mile Island, like,
They
nothing
didn't
happened.
have a meltdown. Yeah, it was a meltdown.
So it's just selling fear. And in terms of the, classically, the left and the liberals have always been pointing at conservatives and saying, all you're doing is out to help the rich companies. But that's exactly what Justin has been doing. And nobody understands it. Nobody understands it. But the only reason that I can think of is he grew up with the elite, so he was around all of these different people. And all of these different heads of these organizations seem to think that Justin is incredibly easily to manipulate.
Well, he is. We've seen that.
He's a moron.
There you go.
He's a moron, and he's smart enough to know what he's doing, right? And like any other corrupt politician, follow the money. It's that simple. Follow the money. Derek Sittler again, basically saying, don't be so naive to believe he cares. He's the most corrupt politician this country has ever created. Hence a lack of rhyme or reason to his policies. Follow the money. It's, we don't need a sociology degree or a political science degree to figure that out.
Or a gender studies degree.
Well, gender studies and basket weaving. God, that's my degree. $45,000 in debt. Someone else pay for it. I'm educated. I'm superior. That's
Where's that class?
Exactly. I might go do some interpretive dancing later or something. Get myself a latte and get a slap and tickle for $1.50. Enough of that. Dodo, or I think I pronounced his name right. Climate change is the being that's being spewed all over the manipulated data from worst case scenarios only. The science is saying we're actually going to the opposite direction in more water, more lush plant life. Yes. And Dr. Patrick Moore validated that too about a year ago. I forget, I was going to have that link here tonight. I forget what website he was on, but we all know who Dr. Patrick Moore is. One of the founding members of Greenpeace. He grew up in BC, so he knows about the rivers and the waters and the trees. And he's quite the intelligent guy. And he's very, very, very nonsense, If he wants to tell you to fuck off, he will. He's not going to pull a Suzuki on you and worry about the migration and the breeding pattern of fruit flies. He'll tell you how weather works because he's an actual trained ecologist. So well said there, Dodo. Well said. Thank you. Panel, anything to add?
Yeah, it is interesting how they are taking the extremes. But if you look at the playbook of the left, that's how they approach every single societal issue. They jump to the extremes. When you're talking about gender affirming care for, 6-year-olds, they say, well, would you rather a dead kid or a trans kid?
Or like we got a letter from our son's school. He's in kindergarten, and we got a letter that they're going to be teaching intersectionality
and
to our
anti-racism.
child. Yeah, in kindergarten.
So, because they are concerned about the racism the systemic racism that's going on in the school system, and I'm just thinking, these kids are too young to be racist. I'm sorry, but racism is negative racism is learned. Mm-hmm. From a biological standpoint, we all have a little racism programmed into us.
Well, it's from when we were all cavemen, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that dude's not part of my tribe.
Yeah, it's the same as when you see a wolf, oh, that's a problem. That's different than me.
But I think in today's society, we can all play nice. I don't think you have to teach kids to not be racist. I think they're just that way by default.
Well,
that's also a home front too, right? Way I was raised, I was taught not to judge people based on their color or their
Absolutely.
and I would assume you guys were too.
Yeah.
I would say there's more racism come out because of the woke mandates, because of what Donald Trump was saying. Yet he never said anything racial when I would look at his campaign footage. You know, he's guilty of saying the term grab her by the pussy in a conversation he had with someone privately, and that private individual ended up recording it. And
Show me a man who has never made a joke like that.
Exactly. And show me a girl who hasn't either.
Right. Right.
You know, like I grew up with two sisters. I know. It doesn't just happen. It's there.
You're trying to say they grabbed you by the pussy, Crusty?
I'll never tell. I'll never tell.
No, but really, it's just like that. We've seen some videos on online that have come out of some of these university classes, and there was one, and I couldn't believe I was watching reality here, but there was this white professor, and he had two black students and two white students there, and he said to them, to the black students, you know, you're probably not going to graduate, and it's just because you're black. And I'm just thinking, what are you teaching these kids? Now he thinks he's teaching these kids, well, see, there's systemic racism here, and it's because people see that you're black that you're not going to make it. And it is such a load of horseshit.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is all you're teaching these kids, you're teaching them, don't bother trying.
Yeah.
Do not bother trying because you're never going to make it. Rather
give
than
us your money anyway, because we'll make sure you get an education.
Yeah. Thank you for the thousands of dollars for tuition.
Well, and the other thing we're teaching these kids is that you're not the master of your own fate. If you teach kids that you're a victim right from the start based on, you know, sex or race or whatever characteristic you want to say, then they're powerless to do anything. But if you teach them, you know, you're going to have to work hard and sometimes you're going to fail, but you'll learn and you'll adapt and you'll improvise and move on. That's the message we should be teaching our kids. That builds strong character.
Well, I agree entirely with that, because I remember back in school, I was never a mathematician, right? Academics was never really my strongest forte. I liked English. I liked history. I really enjoyed woodshop and drafting. Like I really enjoyed those courses. Math was never my strong suit, but there was one year I had to take summer school to get my qualification, right? And I did it. But luckily I had a teacher who was black, by the way, who didn't give up on me. Not because he was black or because there was some kind of equity quote at the time, because he liked what he was doing and he didn't mind sharing his time with people to show them how to do it. That man was a leader.
Yep.
That man was an educator, right? So his actions improved my math mark about 25%. My actions too, because I end up studying, understanding the formulas, you know, frickin' tech math. Who the hell needs tech math unless you're putting a rocket into space? But that was the standard at the time, right? And I did it. We got the passing grade and everything was just jam dandy. Now, I don't see that kind of dedication. I don't.
Well, it seems like the teachers want to push an agenda first and then teach the kids like secondary, you know?
Yeah.
Well, and actually Fox just found another story, but a couple hours ago before we came on here, about a teacher that was suspended because she was saying that we shouldn't be teaching kids to notice skin color and we shouldn't be teaching anti-racism. So she was suspended.
She was against critical race theory being taught to like 6-year-olds, and she had voiced her concern in a private Facebook group, and someone in that Facebook group reported her to, I don't know if it was their union or their licensing body or whoever it happened to be, and she was suspended for like a year.
While they did an investigation. Yeah.
I think I'm familiar with that story. Didn't Rebel cover that too, I believe?
It was either Rebel or True North. I saw the link on Reddit today. So it's probably on the Canadian Conservative sub, I think is where it came from.
Yeah, we're seeing a few of those individuals getting exposed. which is good because you got to have the story out there, right? What does a 6-year-old boy have to worry about if his neighbor is black or not? The 6-year-old boy should understand sentence structure and how to add and subtract, how to get along, how to share things with people, rather than projected, gender identity. Like that's just drives me nuts.
Well, and it is so frustrating to see these kids, especially young white boys, because they're walking into an educational system that views them as the ultimate evil. Mm-hmm. And we can't predict the effect that this is going to have on them by the time they're teenagers. Be careful what you wish for, mm-hmm. because you may be raising within the school system a whole new generation of angry young criminals, because you've told them all their lives that they are racist, that they're responsible for every sin in the world. And at some point, they're just going to give up and say, fine, I am. And I'm going to prove it to you.
It brings me to the old adage where you've got a class of kids and little Billy likes to swear in class, right? So what does the teacher do? He or she will punish the whole class because of Billy's swearing, right? Okay, kids, Billy swore, so therefore you're not going out for recess. Oh, way to go, Billy. Way to go, Next day, Billy swears in class again, right? Teacher says, okay, Billy swore in class. You guys aren't going out for recess again. So let's say this goes on for a semester and Billy keeps swearing in class. So the students finally have enough and say, okay, we're going to get you, Billy. Then when they finally get a chance to go outside, they all beat up on Billy. Next semester, Billy comes back, kills all the kids in his class.
Yep.
I know it's a scary story. It's a stupid story to some people who might be listening, but you had the authority in charge on how to deal with that situation. That teacher should have punished Billy for swearing in class, not punish the whole class.
I'll even go one step further there, Crusty. The teacher should have kept Billy after class and said, Billy, what's wrong?
Yeah.
Well, furthermore, group punishment is actually against the Geneva Convention.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think there's too many teachers out there who pay attention to that right now.
Yeah. They didn't go to that class. But
where's Geneva?
Like, you talk to some child psychologists, they will tell you that Billy's most likely swearing in class because there's something really bad going on at home.
Yeah.
And Billy, this is his outlet. He's he could be in an abusive home where mom and dad are beating on each other, so no one's paying attention to Billy, and there's just anger, and he doesn't know how to express it, and the only way he knows how to get attention is this.
Yeah.
So, and Marilyn Manson said something about the Columbine kids, and it really, really struck a chord with me when I heard him say it, because everyone views him as the devil. But they asked him, what would you say to these kids if you had the opportunity to talk to them? And he said, I wouldn't say a fucking thing. I'd listen, because that's what nobody else did to these kids.
Mm-hmm. And regardless of where they were brought up, that's the thing. No one listened to them. And they came from very, very affluent families too. But that doesn't matter how much money you're making. You could be filthy rich and still be the worst parents on the planet.
Oh, for sure. Money doesn't make you a good parent.
Yeah, exactly. And based on even that documentary that Michael Moore did too, he found out that these two lads were planning it. So what kind of hidden agenda were they brought up with too? What instilled them to do that? It's got to be the home life. It's got to be something was planted in them years prior to contemplate that action. So,
well, and they point to the FBI, they point to law enforcement. No. Point at the teachers. Point at his parents. You've seen these kids every single day as they've been growing up. You're telling me this just came out of the blue. This does not just come out of the blue.
Yeah, it doesn't just happen.
Yeah. So it's this lack of responsibility and accountability that people are taking these days. And again, that is a leftist preached ideology, this whole victimhood thing. And again, it goes all the way back up to what Trudeau and the government are spouting out there. It's it's nobody else's fault, and it's not your fault, it's everybody else's fault. Even this crap with Michael Chong, where he says, CSIS didn't give me the information. And the good thing is, CSIS is now saying, no, you're not throwing us under the bus this time, buddy.
Yeah. Sorry, Buckeye. Your secretary a month before, during other in-committee hearings, said that you see every piece of paper that comes across your desk.
Yep.
And I'm sure all those pieces of paper had something to do with CSIS and China interference and whatever other tidbits of information that CSIS gathered, right? So, yeah, you can't bullshit a bullshitter there too, because I know CSIS gets to see a lot of information, and I'm not saying we as citizens have to be privy to the information that they see, but when something like that, when a member of parliament is being harassed or coerced into something they don't need or want or have to do, you would think the prime minister would be on that like a fat kid and a smarty, right? But of course not.
You would think. And the answer is why?
Yeah.
The answer, you have to say why. And we released a short a couple hours ago. It was difficult to get it under 60 seconds, but we released a short that went through. This is what the director of CSIS said at the proc hearing in committee, when he said that we brief the prime minister regularly on foreign interference, and then skipped ahead to Katie Telford, where she says nothing is kept from the prime minister and he reads everything. And then May 1st, when the briefing dropped from CSIS to Globe and Mail. And then May 3rd, when Justin says, this never made out of CSIS. And then May 4th, when Michael Chong says that, his national security advisor informed me that it did make it out of CSIS, all the way up to the Privy Council. So,
well, and we've been watching the news. As far as we know, nothing has happened yet for this Chinese diplomat. Like, they have been summoned or whatever, but like there has been no punitive action taken.
Yeah, because they have leaders that got no balls.
Well, they got no balls, and Melanie Joly, no doubt, is probably over in London.
She's got Justin's balls.
Yeah.
I would say something derogatory, but I don't want the YouTube people sitting there going, that was just so rude, Crusty. How dare you? Well, anyway, how dare you ruin my childhood? How dare you? Yes. Well, we're going to take some questions now, ladies and gentlemen. Right now, I got to do a commercial break. With me tonight is the fine people at Northern Perspective, husband, wife, team, Cypher, and Fox. We'll be right back after these commercial messages. So hang tight. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Crusty Canuck here. Just to remind you, my wonderful audience out there, that Battlefit Bodywear was founded in Windsor, Essex, Ontario in 2019 and is a proud Canadian company. All of our apparel and accessories are purchased and printed right in our hometown by local independent business owners. And we pride ourselves on quality and customer satisfaction. At Battlefit Bodywear, we believe that every person has a warrior with them waiting to come out. Our brand is meant to inspire and fan the internal flame. Regardless of what your thing is, take it to the next level and be the best version of yourself that you can be. We also believe in that maintaining balanced lifestyle is a key to a good life and includes having a regimented and productive fitness and exercise schedule. Motivation comes and goes, but discipline will get you across the finish line. Get there with Battlefit Bodywear. Crusty Canuck says so. Cheers.
Stay updated and follow Crusty Canuck on Facebook, Twitter, Gab, Telegram, YouTube, and Podbean. Subscribe today and donate at crustycanuck.ca.
And that's right, ladies and gentlemen. We are back on the Crusty Canuck podcast. This May 7th special episode live with Northern Perspective, husband, wife, team, Cypher, and Fox. So before that break, we were discussing what CSIS knows and what they passed forward, basically how you pass it up through the chain of command, basic military procedure. You have information, you pass it up to your your section commander. Section commander gives it up to your platoon commander. Yada 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 goes up, depending on how pertinent the information is, and then someone actually makes a decision to do something about it. But it looks like our prime minister doesn't give a royal fuck about it. Okay.
No, he absolutely doesn't.
No, of course not. No.
I think that. Well, I think. Let me clarify that. I think he cares a great deal about it, but not in the way that everyone would hope.
No, he's a Canadian.
No. He has some sort of back deal going on with China, and CSIS must know that.
They don't trust. No.
And it is so telling when they started leaking information, because that means that they don't trust the Prime Minister's office. And that is Canadians should be absolutely terrified at that prospect that our Secret Service doesn't trust our Commander-in-Chief to the point where they're risking life imprisonment by actually releasing this information to the public. So, and the fact that they do this so intelligently, they understand the news cycle, they understand that they release a little bit of information, it makes little waves in the news and then goes away, and they wait for that dip, and then on comes the next piece of information. And even the last one, I was wondering, when's the next one coming? It's been a while. But they waited. They knew the strike action was probably going to happen. That would have completely obfuscated any story that they released. So as soon as the majority of the strike workers went back to work, bang, they released that next story. So I'm very curious to see what happens. My guess is they're going to wait and see what happens with David Johnston's recommendation, and they probably have a nice big grenade in their hand if David Johnston does not come back recommending a public inquiry. And if he doesn't recommend one, my guess is either that day or the day after, we're probably going to see the most explosive leak that we've seen to date that will absolutely it'll have to force a no confidence vote. It's going to have to blow Jagmeet so far away from being associated with Trudeau that
he will get his pension though. Oh my God, what's going to happen?
Well, that's it. He has to view that it's the only way to save his pension.
Well, true. But then if Justin steps down, and you've got Miss Freeland going, "Oh, Mr. Speaker," holy shit! Wow, women like
I
that.
hope he does, because no one will be able to stand to listen to her.
Oh, I can't stand Freeland.
And I think they've shoved her in a closet for the last couple of months, because I swear their polling numbers started to dip when she started speaking at Parliament, and then you saw her disappear.
Oh, no doubt. But then she was there with Hillary Clinton. Faux pas.
Little slip there.
The Clinton Foundation. Thank you very much. And her own little version of deplorables. Yeah. So it's I honestly, Cypher and Fox, I honestly tried to watch that and I wanted to puke. Really, all that just disingenuous BS. It's like,
oh, you're stronger than me. I hate Freeland. I can't stand Freeland. Her voice is like ear sandpaper. I always say that. I hate Freeland.
Well, just the way she talks to people, let me be very clear. It's like, oh, well, we're just peasants. We don't, do anything. We just, go to work all day and suck our thumbs and, pick our noses and contemplate life. And, just the way they all approach it too. And you saw the episode where I talked about Michael Cooper in committee talking to three ladies. I think Jennifer O'Connell, or Connor, I think her name is. She's one of the secretaries to the Prime Minister. She's very condescending too, Oh, she's awful. She actually got into a spat with one of the conservative ladies who was pregnant, and essentially implied that the conservative lady was going to kill her baby.
From the stress, yeah.
And oh yeah, that was quite the post question period session and screaming match back and forth. So yeah, she's quite the piece of work.
Well, it's like the episode where Mr. Cooper, I guess he was using the wrong kind of tone, you know. I did my little Christopher Walken impression for that. Yeah, I don't like your tone. You got it all wrong. You know, these are my family, you know. And I'm just thinking, wow, like tax dollars are spent to get the information from these people, and something that's totally legal. You know, why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? Explain yourself. Okay, and that's all you had to do. But then the sidestep and to find the straw man in that argument, I just found it so disingenuous. It's like, lady, you were representing a riding. You were elected. You earned that seat based on your votes. And now you're sitting there pulling out the victim card. Oh, I'm a woman. How dare you talk to me like that? It's like, what are you, fucking royalty? You know?
Well, if
like,
you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen, right?
Well, exactly. You know, you want to play on the ice with the big boys, you got to lace up and forecheck. And if it comes to throwdown, stand your ground. Like, you know,
well, that's it. Like,
you know,
this is hard. It's really hard. And if you can't take it, don't go into politics.
Well,
and obviously you're probably one of these ladies that was underqualified, but just so he could spout gender equality, he probably put you in that position in the cabinet. So, you know, maybe you weren't the most qualified for that, and this is what happens.
Well, and as a woman, that drives me nuts. It feels like, you know, when your kid brings you like a drawing or something, you're like, oh my gosh, this is beautiful. It's like Picasso.
And it's terrible.
It's not like Picasso. We all know it's not like Picasso. But like, you treat it that way. And I feel that's how they're treating women in some jobs, where they're like, oh, you know, we'll promote you, or you're doing such a great job, or look, we have all these women on the team. Like, it's not based on merit. It's based on the fact that you're a woman. Like, they treat us like little kids.
Well, and I have women who work for me, and I've had some of these conversations with them, and one of them absolutely despises this promoting of women just because they're women, because all you're doing is causing more problems. And there's two main problems with that. Number one is that you are causing these ladies to question whether or not they've earned this position. Number one, you know, it's one thing to receive a promotion. It's probably the greatest thing you can have with, you know, in your life and your career, when somebody taps you on the shoulder and recognizes you as being good enough that you deserve a promotion. You know, it makes all the hard work and all the long hours worth it. And to have these women question whether they deserve this or not, that's terrible. And then two, everyone around them is questioning whether they've earned it and whether they're qualified for it. So you're poisoning the work environment by doing this, rather than just making a straight meritocracy. And there are some incredibly capable women out there. Let them earn their stripes.
I served with many women that earned their rank, and they earned their position because they drove the body, shot the foot. It's a military expression, right? You know, they drove it, they did it, you know. And I did train a couple of ladies that tried to pull that on me, that card. And luckily I had the sergeant major around to witness it. And let's just say they never tried that crap again. You know, I didn't scream and yell. I was very stern. And this is what we do when we did the military. You point at somebody, you do the whole hand. You don't do this because this is deemed aggressive. Yet you carry a rifle into battle. Oh, take me, Taliban. I'm too aggressive. You know, like, come on. So you do that. And I was very stern. I used my drill voice, my inside drill voice. All right. And I said, if you ever pull that on me again, I will make sure I call your unit. You'll never work a Class B again. Do you understand me? And you get that look. She nodded. I just carry on. Right? And I got a thumbs up from the sergeant major. You know, because that's how you deal with it in the service. Now, if this was the civilian world and I'm working in an office and I need 10 files done by 10:30, and the individual in charge of those files is not ready yet, and she's been slacking off, what do? Now, one could be a prick. I could say, hey, sort your shit out or get out. or be just as stern, right? With using my inside civilian voice, my caring, caressing voice, but get the point across, right? I can understand being nice to people, but then if you're a leader or an employer and you had enough of this bullshit, you got to do something about it quick. That's the thing.
This is why in every single interaction, I make sure I have a female HR person with me.
I don't trust HR anymore. That's you. I understand. I had HR looking out after me. I used to work at the base gym for about a week. Just a job, just, to fill in the time and probably get into something full time later on. And we had a talk about teaching kids sexuality. And I made the comment of saying, just leave kids alone. Let them grow into it as they should. Right? You hit puberty, you start
normal response.
That's the thing. Now, this lady took it upon herself to be offended. And she had every opportunity to talk to me about it. Like, pull me aside and say, hey, what you said was kind of out of line, or I don't like it. That's the options. But instead, a week later, I was hauled into the office and I'm being chatted to by 6 different people, 4 people who I've never met before, saying we're going to cancel your contract because you deemed to be homophobic and you're not promoting inclusivity. And I'm like, how did I do that? Well, the person that complained can't be here now because she fears for her safety. And I automatically knew who it was, right? So I'm just like, okay. So the HR person was talking to me like I was some kind of idiot. And I'm just sitting there going, okay, yeah, all right. Yeah. In one ear at the other, wah, 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 like Charlie Brown.
Absolutely.
I just left. It's like, fine, whatever. And it was just annoying. It was just really annoying. It was kind of upsetting because here you're on a military base. You guys are part of a program that trains soldiers to maintain physical fitness. And yet you're pulling me aside worrying about because I have an opinion that someone disagrees with. Yeah. So much for being inclusive, eh? So.
Well, that's it. It's inclusivity as long as you agree with us.
Yeah. Like a high school dance, right? You're not wearing Doc Martens? Well, how dare you talk to me? Yeah,
pretty much.
Exactly.
Pretty much. Well, Justin is still, I don't think he's ever left the dance. So
I don't think he ever went. Probably went to the dance with some boys or something. Well, I'll just leave it at that, whatever. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we are with Northern Perspective, Fox and Cypher, husband and wife team, dissecting, criticizing politics as we see today. Now we will take some questions from the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, please keep them clean and sincere. Ask anything you like. Are you guys open to questions, Fox and Cypher?
The only questions we're not going to be open to are anything that might reveal our identities or like who we are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So please don't.
I mean, that's why we use the puppets. So.
These terrible puppets which we hate using, let's just put that there right now.
Well, that's the thing. We're not going to infringe your privacy. So, ladies and gentlemen, everybody on YouTube and Facebook and Rumble watching, please don't hesitate to ask these 2 fine people any questions or ask myself any questions, and we'll get the show on the go here. So, yeah. Or if you have something to say, please don't hesitate. I'll try to post all comments if I can, best of my abilities for you all. I'm trying to get this on the go here. Oh, I can't open this page for some reason. Okay, you guys can still hear me, eh?
Yep.
Okay, so it doesn't seem anything's coming in for now. So, no, once again, I appreciate you guys coming out and doing this. This is excellent. It's good to see and hear other perspectives without trying to get hold of pages with agencies and stuff too. I've reached out to some celebrities over the years. What is this? It's freezing on me here. Yeah.
Well, it's our pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for inviting us on. Maybe in the meantime, I'll ask you a question, which is, how did you find Northern Perspective?
It was in my feed.
Awesome.
Crusty disappeared. Well, I guess this is where I say, welcome back to the channel, everyone. Well, I guess we're carrying the podcast until Crusty returns.
All right. Well, if you're joining us on YouTube, please make sure you hit that like button because it will help boost the algorithm and will show this feed to other people who can possibly come and watch.
Well, and honestly, that's the greatest challenge that we're actually fighting against the algorithm right now. When we actually started our channel, one of the things that I investigated was YouTube marketing. And one of the things that they told us is that be careful at some of the keywords that you're using, because Google is known to censor or at least curb the algorithm when you mention anything China related. So it can be a challenge sometimes. So I see the latest question came in. Do you think Canada can change under Pierre Poilievre? And are you like me and think he will be Trudeau as a conservative?
So I actually know somebody who was one of his staffers, and she has said that the way he is in front of the camera is the way he is behind the camera. Again, I don't know this person. I've never met this person. It's like a friend of a friend. So I'm hoping that what he's saying is genuine, that he really does want to carry Canada forward and get us back to where we were before Justin took office.
Well, and if you look at, so I'm a full proponent of meritocracy. So I'm not going to say that he's not going to do a good job until he has the opportunity. Right now, he's saying some good things, and I've been following Pierre all the way back to where he was going after Justin during the We Charity scandal, and that's where I really started to like him. And I get a sense that he is authentic. Like you look at his reactions, you look at his emotions, they seem real compared to some of the other politicians where it is just so manufactured and so cringy. You see right through it. Let's just put it this way. If there was a vote today, I'd vote for Pierre. And I can't believe that he would sit here and just do nothing about all of the things that he's literally pointing out are problems with this country, like the carbon tax. He's committed on many occasions to equalizing government spending and putting in a program to do that. Whereas if he wants to spend money on a new program, he will find the equal amount of savings somewhere else in order to pay for that, because the budget is too bloated as it is. And that has to stop. There has to be a curb in the spending. Otherwise, inflation is just going to continue to increase at ridiculous rates, and cost of living continues to go up, and it's going to crush the Canadian middle class. And if the middle class falls, the economy falls. Do we think that Liberals are going to push this woke agenda even harder to distract people from all of their scandals? I think the Liberals are trying to find something, anything, in order to talk about other than the scandal that's going on. If you recall, when the first leak came out about Han Dong, Trudeau tried the woke tactic of calling everybody racists. How dare you?
Didn't work though.
How dare you? But nobody bought it because the facts were laid bare. So I think he got pretty concerned when that didn't work. And then the Conservatives in question period just started hammering him over and over and over again with the same questions. And Justin has become very frustrated. And because CSIS keeps monitoring the news cycle and drops a little bit more breadcrumbs when it dies down, it never goes away. And Justin, I think, is getting very exhausted and frustrated.
My opinion is that I think the left is using this whole woke agenda to get us fighting with each other. If you're fighting with your neighbor, if you're fighting with the teachers at your kid's school, if you're fighting with your friends, you're not focused on what's going on in Parliament. So it's like a divide and conquer plan, I think, that he's trying to use here.
Yeah. Pierre Poilievre has the same immigration policies, just named differently. Don't forget to get his catchphrase, the milk. Well, you still need immigration.
Yeah, we're not having enough babies in this country to support, programs and taxes to grow the population. I think we do need immigration, but I think also we need to start focusing on families. And I think the Conservatives are more focused on families than the Liberals. When Stephen Harper was running for re-election, one of the platforms was income splitting. So in cases like ours, where I'm a stay-at-home mom and Cypher's the one earning the paycheck, you can split the money on your taxes, and that Cypher would pay lower taxes. And so we would have more money coming in overall into the household overall, because we wouldn't be paying so much in tax. We've had friends of ours that combined, they make the same income as Cypher, and they're bringing home way, way more money because they're in lower tax brackets, because each person is able to claim the tax. The Liberals had said that tax splitting would only benefit the rich, and that it's not for the middle class, and it'll take money from the middle class. And I don't know why people bought it, because that's not the case at all. Even if you're off on mat leave, having a baby, your salary goes down. So income splitting would have helped in that case. So to me, that was one of the great losses of Harper not getting reelected.
Well, and just think, if you're making $40,000 a year and you income split with your partner, you're effectively, falling into the bottom tax bracket, the both of you. That's going to save you a lot of money. And the problem is it used to be that your partner would go to work just to get some extra money.
Yeah, like growing up, all of my friends had stay-at-home moms. And then once we got to like maybe, 8 or 10 years old, mom would go off and get a part-time job somewhere. Not like a full career, but just, like the girl who lived behind me, her mom worked at the Shoppers Drug Mart. My aunt worked as a clerk at a grocery store, like just little part-time things to keep mom busy, maybe bring in a little extra money in the house. But the focus was still the family. The focus was still the children. And that's not happening anymore. Yeah.
And the left has done so much damage to the family unit that, we're seeing all of these problems now with kids, and women are having children so much later, which is causing health problems in all of these kids because of geriatric pregnancies and health issues. And yet the left just still says, oh no, it's all great, nothing to see here. Well, a lot of women may not want to work, but the problem is they have to, because how do you afford a life in this country when you're both not working? So, it causes either less children or no children because you can't afford them. So it's this perpetual problem that is going to have a huge impact on society. Welcome back, Crusty. We were carrying on the show without you. Well, I can't hear you.
We've
now.
Lost sound, I think.
Okay, how's that?
Yeah, much better.
Perfect. You're clearer now than you were before, so maybe you should have outages more often. Oh, now it's off. Now we can't hear you.
Okay, how's that?
There we go.
Much better.
All right. My apologies, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, wow, what a freeze that was. So, I don't know where that came from. Just everything froze up. I was like, what's going on?
Trudeau and Bill C-11.
Yeah, censorship. That's it. We don't like what this guy has to say. So if anybody from the audience would like to ask my lovely guests here some questions, feel free to. And then we'll begin the shutdown process. My apologies once again. I've had technical difficulties with this podcast for some reason. So I don't know. I'll have to reformat something. I don't know. I'll tinker around with it later. So. But I'm glad that everyone stuck around. Thank you. Thank you very much to Cypher and Fox there for putting up with this. I don't know what was going on, because every time I do an episode, everything goes tickety-boo. I already have my, I have everything in working order. But now, Justin Trudeau, why are you guys cartoons?
Oh my God, I love your name and your profile pic.
There you go. So, we are cartoons because where I work, you get fired for having these opinions. And that's not conjecture. There are multiple examples out there that I'd love to cite, but it would, probably zero in on where I work. But let's just say that there have been significant numbers of examples where, Jordan Peterson as an example, his accreditation organization, the Ontario Psychologists.
College of Psychologists of Ontario, I think.
Yes,
yeah.
the College of Psychologists of Ontario came after him because he disagreed with something Justin Trudeau said. So he tweeted something, and all of a sudden they came after him, and they said that he needs to be retrained by an expert for $2,500. So, yeah. But anyway, so when we started this, we wanted to get the message out, but we needed to do it safely. So I don't lose my income. Again, we're a single income household. So if I lose my income,
we're out on the street, all of us. Yeah.
So, there is a bit of anxiety, whenever we boot something up, but at the same time, we do take precautions. I have a VPN, which, so according to the government, I'm in Europe all the time. And we use this face tracking technology so that it still gives our audience something to interact with. It puts a face to the voice, but it masks who we are. We did start it with voice modulation as well.
You can still hear that on our early videos. It was pretty bad.
Yeah,
but again, we were worried about somebody catching us and figuring out who we were.
I can still hear you with clarity when I was listening to your show. So hope that answers your question there, Trudeau. We got another question here from Didi Dodo. Not to cut you guys off there, but do you believe Trudeau knows his days are numbered? If so much damage do you think he's intentionally going to do before he is out?
I don't think his party would let him. I don't think, as much as a scumbag as Jagmeet is, I don't think the NDP would let that happen. Not Jagmeet, but the rest of the party. I've seen some of their representatives in these committees, and they actually do a decent job of questioning.
Especially with the guns. I know they're guns issue. Yeah. So
I don't think Justin thinks his days are numbered. I think he's very worried. I think he's very, very worried, especially when he's trying to employ Pierre's own tactics, like he did in his speech at the Liberal convention. That was not Justin Trudeau. Like, that is not typical for him.
No, someone told him to write it or say
it. And he has said before, that he will never, employ those tactics. Well, now he is. But he only does it. He only does it when Pierre is not around him. So he's
still scared.
He's scared of Pierre. He's legit scared of Pierre because Pierre keeps coming after him. Mm-hmm. So I think he's very worried. I think he will only think his days are numbered if he is forced to call a public inquiry. Mm-hmm. And the only people that can force him to do that and take that out of his control is the NDP.
Yeah. Well, that's because they're buddy. They're together. They'll slap and tickle each other. Slap and tickle for your pickle.
But that's the thing. The NDP forced him to bring Katie Telford before committee, and that was a disaster for the Liberals.
Well, she's not the sharpest knife in the drawer either, too. So, that's kind of self-explanatory.
Well, again, did she earn the position or not? So,
knee pads or no knee pads? Evil. Ooh. All right, ladies and gentlemen, any more questions, please? Oh, here's one here from another one from Mr. Justin Trudeau. How much you want to bet Trudeau works for the United Nations once he's removed as prime minister? Well,
I think
I can honestly tell you that McKenna has a nice cushy UN job. So sure, they'll bring Justin in. They'll get him running papers or coffee or something, in the name of climate or something a little more
Fashion
prestigious.
consultant.
I think he's going to go running to the Trudeau Foundation and just like dive into that pile of money. I think he's
no doubt.
Yeah, that's what I think he's going to do.
No doubt. They've got a plan with that cash. Or China will give them something comfy in one of their mines in some third world country. Well, I don't want to sound like, some arrogant American Republican with connections to gold and shit, but we look at Red China as hypocrites. They are. They're not strong communists. They're socialists, sure, but they're also tyrant and they're fascist too. They want to make money, but They want to make money their way, right? A true communist doesn't want to make money. A true communist is a volunteer, is a worker, right? But I don't see true communists. I see kids that want to try communism out, but within about 6 months, I'm pretty sure they'll be starving to death and crying for their mommies, because they don't like this system all of a sudden, right? But he'll be looked after. Mulroney was looked after very well after he left politics. So was Chrétien, and even Chrétien's speech there too, about how Canada's this and Canada's that, and yet he was in charge of the sponsorship scandal. He cut 30% from defense spending. Those gentlemen that were involved with the Somalia inquiry, they were punished, but it also put a dark stain on the Canadian military for a very long time because of the CBC's actions and because of what the Liberal Party did. Also, members of his cabinet chastised snipers that actually took out some Taliban in 2002. So they don't have a very good track record when it comes to looking after our troops. So the Liberals have never been a friend of the military. Never.
No, not at all.
Not at all. And Conservatives were getting close with Harper. But I'm curious, let's say if they had called an election next month, Pierre gets in, I would still be cautious because the procurement board in this country is all slap and tickle, buddy. We get rid of these boards. You put qualified personnel in a procurement board. Doesn't matter if it's for the military or if it's for the Coast Guard or for any kind of national service. You get qualified people in there that know what the hell they're doing. And you buy the best piece of equipment that's going to do the job. Doesn't matter if it's Canadian or not. Right?
Well, and that's it. And Pierre seems committed to eliminating government waste. Well, Trudeau increased it by 30%. So that's his first target to go after.
Yeah. How many government offices popped up since he got to be prime minister?
Too many.
How many government positions? There are 2 positions in the name of diversity and inclusion. I think there's 2 extra positions towards the status of women, right? Yeah,
there's a minister of gender and equity or something like that.
Yeah, we learned that the other day, didn't we?
Yeah. So, but I think the number is I think it's 15,000 something like that positions. No, 45,000 positions were created.
Mm-hmm. And that's the jobs they talk about creating.
Yes.
Not private sector jobs. That's needed. That's needed, but what do I know, right? Right. So, but there's another question here from the Sanico. He's quite the fan of the show. What are your thoughts on how Trudeau used foreign tragedy to ban our firearms? I'll let you guys answer, then I'll answer.
Okay. So, I just want to start by saying, like the Nova Scotia tragedy, it was a tragedy. Like it should not have happened. It's not okay. And lives were lost, and that's always a tragedy. However, I don't think banning firearms, like legal firearms, was the way to go, because the guns that were used in that assault were not legal firearms. They were all imported from the U.S.
Oh yeah, he got them from the U.S. That was proven.
Here's my thought is, a lot of times Trudeau will point to the states, and he'll say, look at all those mass shootings and everything. Yeah, look at all of them. Look what we don't have, Justin. We don't have mass shootings every single day of the year.
But even if we had that gun ban that he instituted, unfortunately, it would have happened still because they were illegally imported.
Yeah, it wouldn't have done anything. Here's my thoughts. I've had a lot of conversations with people that own a lot of guns and love guns. I don't own guns, but I've shot guns. It is fun to do, and I don't believe in removing that from anyone. I think that the legislation that we have is very strict, and I don't think there's any need to make it even more strict than it is. You don't fix a problem, or you don't put in a solution to a problem that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Well, and it happened once. And again, I get the fact that they're like, oh, we don't want this to happen again. But it would have happened either way because of where the guns came from.
Mm-hmm. And plus, he was already on the RCMP's radar for domestic issues and other issues too. So they knew who he was. It wasn't just some random stranger that sat in his basement and planned this for months at a time. You know.
So the question is, why did the RCMP go and get him?
That's the thing. And it's probably because legislation was passed prior to that to be a little more lenient on domestic guys or some potentially dangerous people to give them a better chance. And yet I grew up in a situation where we had domestic problems and I stood my ground and I wanted to press charges. I wasn't allowed to because of somebody's pride. So that took me for a whirl too. So I can see the dynamic there in a domestic situation. But from police officers I have talked to, they've wished in certain circumstances just to grab a guy and a girl in some situations and throw them in the cooler, you know, but some procedures, they can't do that, right? Depending on who's in charge of that shift or that unit, sometimes it gets tougher. But for the gun laws, yeah, they are strict, but basically they just don't want us to have guns. That's what it is. And they're looking for every excuse to do that. They don't have any money to buy back because they can't purchase what I purchased. How are they buying it back from me? I never bought it from them. So how are they going to buy it back from me?
Well, they don't want us to rise up in any way against the government. They're trying to remove the firearms. They're trying to clamp down on media. Like, because we're not considered, I guess, verified sources, our channel would get shut down under this new proposal.
Well, so would you, Crusty. So.
Oh, exactly. You know, well, what's this veteran? What's he talking about? What do you mean common sense? He doesn't have the common sense. He never went to university. I got my basket weaving degree. Oh, yes, of course. Now, but see, that's the thing. It's a shutdown from all aspects, right? So one could speculate, is it going to be a Marxist takeover, a subtle Marxist takeover? Or let's say if World War III happens, and then you've got Red China knocking on our shores.
Yep.
If that's the case, then guess what? Civvies, you're soldiers now too. So get a gun, stand your ground. All right.
That's it.
That's the thing. Any more questions from the audience? Thank you once again, though, for sticking around. Even when I had that technical faux pas there, still is my apologies. Thank you once again, Northern Perspective, for sticking around and during that fiasco. I'm grateful. And to my audience out there, thank you very much for coming out. We got time for a couple more questions, and I'm sure Northern Perspective, you're going to make another video tonight. You're going to take the night off.
Well, I didn't want to be up super late. Sometimes I'm up till 2:30 editing and getting it ready. So I was actually able to take some of our extra footage because there was so much extra footage from this week from everything that went on, and I pre-edited a video, so it's actually going to be dropping in 4 minutes. So.
Oh, excellent. Great. Okay. And to my audience out there, thank you once again for sticking around when I had that technical difficulty. Everything's blacked out. Hope you guys had a wonderful conversation in my absence. But if there's any more questions, please feel free to ask myself, Cypher, or Fox. And we'll leave the floor open for another couple of minutes, and then we'll shut her down. So, yeah. So, no new good jokes?
Yeah, there's one sitting in the Prime Minister's office.
Oh.
Actually, well, I'm not sure if you saw the one period, but so it just shows how quick-witted Pierre is. So Trudeau is trying to attack the Conservatives and saying, well, they didn't even invest in a doorknob, the last time that they were in power. And then Pierre got right up after Justin sat down and said, well, the first thing the Liberals did was install a doorknob in the Prime Minister's office. So that was quite the scare. But it's just, there's no contest intellectually when it, when you compare Pierre to Justin. Like Pierre just, this is what he's here to do. So, but
yeah, and all the power to him. And I like to see some real good heat in Parliament, because everybody that's been the Speaker of the House has stifled conversation. And
yes,
when I look at the parliamentary system, all the more reasons to have heated debate, because you're the House of the people. If you represent the people and people in your riding are pissed off, then you as that representative said riding should stand up and speak your mind on behalf of the people. Because
they put you there.
Well, that's the thing. And when I was doing my campaign, I said to the people in this riding, let me do this job. And I will fight for you. I will use my words. I will use dialect. I will use dialogue. And I will take the time to relearn French again if I had to too. Just to get the points across so people will listen. People are starting to listen now. Okay, that's good. But we need more balls. We do. We need more balls. We need people to say no. Right? No, we will not do this. We will not vote for this. Mr. Speaker, fine. Fine me $500. I will not stand by this any further. Knock on these guys' doors in the offices before a parliamentary sits down and give them a blast of shit. I would do that in a heartbeat. And if I get kicked out of Parliament, well, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Come back the next day, do the same thing again.
And you know what? You'll be Billy in class, but you won't come back and shoot everybody up. So
no, but I'll make him scared.
And that's it, right?
But like the years, so I'll turn on the Esposito. I'll turn it on. I don't mind. I don't mind going to work.
Well, in one of the sessions this week, the speaker was trying to chastise one of the MPs, but he was either new or just a backbencher. So Rhoda didn't know who he was. So he actually had to go to the ledger and figure out who the heck it was. And then he said, whoever you are. And it was a guy named, I think, Mark Walkerton or something like that. But so nobody knew who he was until he left question period. And then all the press wanted to ask him questions. So, that's why I say, yeah, stand up, say, piss off. I'm not listening to you. Mm-hmm. And then you'll get some camera time and get the message out.
Well, that's the thing. Unless the powers that be, they're following C11 parliamentary cameras. Oh, we can't show this man. He's just too aggressive. So, Tasango says, Crusty, you should go 90s conservative politician on them when that guy called it the liberal to step outside. I do remember that. I forget his name, but it's on YouTube. The politician lost it with him because I guess the liberal called him a racist. And he more or less raised his voice and said, you want to call me that again, you son of a bitch? Let's go outside. And I just went, oh, beautiful. Yes. You son of a bitch. It was like,
I'm not allowed to beat your ass in here, but I'm allowed to beat your ass outside.
I'll take my tie off and we'll step out by the eternal fountain and I'll give you some internal, all right.
That's right.
I'll
give you some political persuasion the old-fashioned way.
Well, see, that's the thing. And I'm not saying you got to drop glove and fight all the time, but I'm not seeing the balls, the cojones, actual integrity when it comes to representation. Because if someone's going to pay me $189,000 a year, I'm going to fucking earn it.
Oh, yeah. And you want to prove to your constituents that you're earning it. They don't want to think that you're overpaid. You want them to believe that you are earning every single cent.
Okay, but I have a theory on why they are not behaving in that manner anymore. I think it's because everything's televised now. Like we get all of our clips off of Parlview or CPAC, so it's all on TV. It's all over the internet. These people, I think, like the politicians, they don't want people to see how they really are. You know what I mean? They don't want to damage their reputation.
Like I said about
it's just a theory.
Yeah. It's like high school again. You're with a group of people. You want to go along to get along. And then in the high school dynamic, where I went to high school, okay, you had your preppies, right? Had your jocks, you had your sporto guys. Then you had guys like me that are kind of like punk rock skinhead. I like my noise. I want my music. I want my boots. I want to have a beer and spit in someone's face, that kind of thing. The whole I don't give a shit attitude. And you would try to get along, but then you also had people that just went along to get along, and they were never heard.
Yep.
They were never heard. So if you go along, get along, you got something to say, you're afraid to say it because you don't want to upset this group or that group or this individual here. You got your eye on that girl that looks pretty cool. You don't want to speak your mind too much because you might think she thinks you're a weirdo or something. And then you're like, awkward, insecure. So you go along, get along. Enough of that. There's 100,000 people in this riding that want to keep their jobs, keep their money, keep their guns, and go about their lives. And I would love to do that for them. Honestly, I would, so that's the thing. So another question here. Let's see, where is this? Oh, okay, yeah. What are your thoughts on the speaker constantly shutting down the Conservatives on so much? Well, obviously he's a Liberal and he's appointed by the Prime Minister. No.
Yeah, and he's an MP. He's a member of Parliament. So
yeah, he's a sitting MP. I didn't realize that until recently that he's not like a previous MP. He is a current MP, and his job is to break a tie if there was a tie in the House.
But my thoughts are, I think at one point the Conservatives were probably trying to play within the rules, but I think what Pierre and the team have learned is fuck them. And I think that they're taking the attitude of, you know what, we are getting more press by saying what we think. And we're not going to apologize to these assholes anymore. They're the ones destroying the country. So we're going to say what we think. And if he wants to try and shut us down, fine. But the press is getting to know MPs that they've never covered before because of it. So Dan Strawn, he was the guy who called them all liars, and Rhoda went after him and said, "Will you apologize?" And he said, "No, I stand by what I said."
And that was beautiful.
Said, okay.
That was beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll go through all the questions. It's like, too late. People have heard it. The people heard it. So, your parliamentary secretary taking the notes and doing the diction, okay, fine. It's scrubbed from the record, but people heard it and people saw it.
Yeah. And I think people are, it only serves to show people that are watching, and these clips make it out there in the ether, but it serves to show them that this is what the Liberals are trying to do inside the government as well as outside the government. So when there's resistance, then you see where the problem is. I don't think there was enough resistance before, but there is certainly galvanized resistance in the Conservative Party now, and they're getting supported by the Bloc and some people inside the NDP when they do this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's some legitimate NDPers out there that do stand for the working class Canadian.
They do.
I will salute a few of those individuals, but there's a lot of Liberals that don't. And they forget what liberalism is supposed to mean. It's the next step to liberty, and they don't want to give us any. So that's the thing. So, but we'll take another question, ladies and gentlemen, and then we'll begin the shutdown process here. How much do people kind know about LGBT Tory group in the Conservatives? I never heard of that. I know there's gay people serving in the caucus. Not that it matters. I personally don't care who's gay or straight or bi or identifies as a shoehorn. I don't care as long as they treat people fairly and they don't hit them or take their stuff. That's my concern.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Melissa Lance, who's Pierre's deputy, I'm pretty sure she's lesbian.
I think she is, yeah. But
yeah, and you know what? She is awesome. Like when she,
she's a firecracker. I'll give her that.
Yeah.
She
She can dish it. I haven't seen her too much outside of question period in some of the interviews with the press, but I think she'd stand in front of a truck for Pierre based on what I've seen. So,
well, her riding's Thornhill, so that's a very, very a lot of money in Thornhill.
Yeah,
so, I used to live in Newmarket many moons ago, so. Yeah, I'm familiar with that area, but no, she does stand her ground very well. I'll give her that, But see, that's the thing with the Liberals too. They worry too much about who's gay or who's straight. who's this, who's that. It's all about the livestock mentality, you know.
Yeah, it's identity politics instead of how well can you do your job.
Well, they're tracking the check marks, right?
Yeah.
How many check marks do you have?
Yeah.
So exactly. And you know, abolish the check marks. If you're right about something, good. If you're wrong about something, good too. You know, be an adult and own it. But we're not seeing any ownership. We're not seeing any ownership. So we'll take another question, ladies and gentlemen, before we shut this wonderful podcast. Once again, thank you again to Fox and Cypher for filling in for that little faux pas I had there earlier. I don't know, maybe, you know, C11 is starting to work and they're picking on me. I don't know. But we'll see.
We use computer-generated sock puppets. We deal with technical issues all the time that are filled with swear words, so don't worry.
Okay. Well, it's good that you stayed in, though, all the same, and you stuck around for me, because I thought I'd re-sign in again and recalibrate everything. But anyhow, ladies and gentlemen, please give us your questions, your thoughts, and queries. You can reach Northern Perspective at northernperspective00@gmail.com. And I'm sure they'll gladly answer any of your questions or queries. You can also find their channel on YouTube under Northern Perspective. They put out some great videos, great content, and I'm thankful that they joined me tonight on this podcast live stream as best as I could anyhow. So please, ladies and gentlemen, give us another question before we shut this down for the evening, because I know the fine folks in Northern Perspective need a night off because they're always making videos, working pretty hard to get the information out there for us all. But they need to sleep too. So
that we do.
Sleep would be great.
Yeah, our kid keeps waking us up at like 6:30 in the morning.
You know, that's funny. With my job, I'm up at 4:15, have my coffee, watch my news, get ready, and I'm usually checking into work about 10 after 6. So, you know, my days are pretty early as well. When I sleep in, it's about 6:30, 7 o'clock. You know, that's my sleeping in. So, but I hear you. I can hear how tiresome it can be on everybody. So,
yeah, especially we were initially planning on 3 videos a week, and just with all of the stuff that has been happening, it's turned into every night, and well, that's the rhythm now. So,
I hear you. It adds up, but I guess you can say we're fighting a good fight, getting the words out there too. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, if you like and hear what you see, please click like and subscribe. Share this content all over your social media platforms, especially Northern Perspective. Give them a taste of the algorithm, as well as myself too. I have all these subscribers, yet I only get a few that come out. Interesting, eh? You know, John Candy 3D, right? You know, the whole yeah. So. But yeah, it doesn't really come. I have that sound effect in my soundboard here, but because of the configuration, I can't get the sound effects across. So, but I hear you.
It's okay. We'll take the hit for that, Crusty. You can blame us. I don't know how, but just blame us.
No problem. I'll probably do that episode tomorrow too, where I'll go solo and I'll talk about something else and reflect on this episode. But I try to get 2 appearances out when I'm doing when I'm off anyway. So just to keep the interest going too. But if there's no other questions, ladies and gentlemen, then we get the shutdown. I want to thank my guest tonight, the fine, the ever so sensational, and the well-educated, down-to-earth, blue-collar, common sense folk, Cypher and Fox of Northern Perspective. Thank you for coming out. It is much appreciated. You know, thank you for giving me your time. And if you like and hear what you see, once again, ladies and gentlemen, please click like, subscribe, share this content all over your social media platforms. Tell your friends, tell Canadians, other Canadians, to step up and share Canadian content. Doesn't matter if it's commentary, doesn't matter if it's art, interpretive dance, painting, or whatever you desire, as long as it's Canadian, right here. You know, this is what's going to keep the spirit alive, people talking back and forth and sharing all these wonderful products. And I want to thank you, my wonderful audience out there, for tolerating my inconsistency, especially for the past hour and 48 minutes. Thank you to all who have been stuck around and put up with
thank you for tolerating the sock puppets that have been on the screen in front of you for the last hour and 48 minutes too.
Well, I know you're real people because, you know, I've never really talked to a sock puppet. I know one in Ottawa who likes to brag about his socks when we have to start, you know, investing in our military, but that's a different story. So we'll just leave it at that.
Well, I might as well do my Justin Trudeau impression before we leave. So,
oh, please. Okay. Well, it's obviously eggplant. I'm
the Prime Minister.
Yeah, he has an eggplant emoji, isn't he?
Oh, priceless. Oh God. It should be more like a grapefruit.
Hey, Jen, let me see if there's any other vegetables to choose from.
Oh, he's a vegetable, all right. I'll leave it at that. Anyway, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you guys. Oh, that's a green eggplant, limeish almost, kind of with silver hair. There's creams for that, I believe. I think. Well, certain papers. So, anyhow, once again, thank you to the fine people at Northern Perspective, Mr. Cipher and Ms. Fox. I would clue the applause here if I could. I don't know if my audience can hear it. Oh, too many cigarettes. Oh, I gotta quit.
Well, thanks for having us, Crusty. It was a great conversation, and if any of the Northern Perspective subscribers made it over to your audience today, highly recommend you continue to check out Crusty's podcast. We've become watchers and listeners since we discovered it as well, and we don't view any other channel as competitors to us. We're all partners in this fight, and we all got to work together.
Well, that's the thing. I'm not competing with anybody too. I just want to be one of those guys that has to go to OnlyFans to show off his toes to make a few extra bucks. It's not my style.
I admit I won't subscribe to that channel.
For $6.50, you can see my toes. How you like that, eh? Oh, and that's kind of sexy. There you go. Thank you. Watch me make a video, $5,000. Oh, that'd be a treat, wouldn't it?
You're missing calling in life, Crusty. You never know.
Hey, be a foot model somewhere for somebody.
This is what not to do.
Have to write a memoir or something and how I became a foot model. Struggling podcaster has to resort to modeling his feet to get by. Oh yeah, I can see a movie coming out of that one. Anyhow, once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for sticking around, and thank you again to Northern Perspective for the great conversation, and knowing we have people out there that really care about this country and what we can do about it, and care about our allies, and just care about our well-being, and care about our freedoms. So, like I say, once again, thank you guys. You guys are welcome to the podcast anytime when I start doing more episodes, getting things together. And like I always say, ladies and gentlemen, humanity merit wins the day. And I'll see you next time. Bye for now. You guys are sticking around, right?
Yeah, we'll stick around for a bit.
Okay, I'll just do my outro here, and I'll have a little chat afterwards too. So, like I say,
everyone, have a good night.
Yeah, take care.
Hit it, sweetheart. Because I am hard, you will not like me. Yes, sir. There is no racial bigotry here. Here you are all equally worthy.
This has been another episode of the Crusty Canuck podcast. Stay sane, and thank you for listening. From Western Canada, this is the Crusty Canuck podcast.